All right, guys. Be a pretty short video, I think. Depends on how long I talk right now. The carbon work is very time consuming. I've spent the last 6 days sanding, pretty much. So you can see the air filter in here. The air box is on. The cowling is coming along pretty good. I've got quite a bit more work to do to it as far as body work. All the reinforcement for the main part of the cowl's done. I still have to do the division lines. And I've got to build up a little bit over the firewall because there's a little bit more space there than there was originally on the other cowl. So that's what needs to be done with the cowling. The process there is sand it, get rid of all the high spots. And when you do that, you start finding all the little pinholes, all the areas that didn't get a complete soak. And that's probably more prevalent when you do non-vacuum layups because you're not forcing that resin into the fabric. You know, when we squeegee it on there, it seems like you got that just totally soaked, but when you start sanding it, you start to see little teeny pinhole voids, and that's common. So I got this product from Polyfiber. It's called UV Smooth Prime. This is what you would use on a Lancer, Glasair, any composite plane that you're building as your primer coat when you're all done with the body work. Fills in all those pinholes. It's also a UV protectant. It's very sandable, and you can paint it on with a brush because you're going to sand it. So I don't need to get the sprayer out every time I need to do that. I did test it right up around the nose here. I figured that was a good place to test because it's going to be hidden by the spinner. And it did fill in really good, super easy to sand, but it won't fill a large void. The large voids or low spots still need to be done with the micro. And the micro, again, is that glass ball powder, really fine glass balls, and you mix that in with the resin and make like a putty. How you mix that, there you have some suggestions on how to do it, determines how easy it is to sand. So anyway, that's the process there. I'll show some time lapse of me sanding, but if you just multiply that times 6 days, that's pretty much what I've been doing. And it's just not that exciting for video for you guys. I also was able to get the throttle linkage set up, so I'll cover that here with some video, and hopefully I explain basically why you need to do that. And then the air box. So I've got a clip here showing you the air box as well. Anyway, that's progress for the week. It hasn't been a whole lot. It's been just a lot of sanding, a lot of monotonous sanding. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll hopefully have more content for you next week.
All right, guys, I'm going to do a couple follow-up things on the cowling. So it was a little bit thin in some of the bigger areas, so I went ahead and put another piece in here, there, over here, and over here. And I also reinforced around all the openings up front. Where it was only one layer here, I pre-fed up to 3, so that's real solid now. And then underneath these layers, I also put that strip of the carbon fiber tape. I think I showed that in the other video. So it's super stiff now. You know, it doesn't flex hardly at all. The concern I had up here was it flexed just by pushing on it. It would flex right there. It doesn't now. Started working on the body filler a little bit with the micro balloons. Depending on how you mix that up, it can be a real bear to sand it down. So basically, the more glass balls you put in there, the easier it is to sand. So they have 3 different recommended mixes. They've got like a slurry, a medium mix, and then like a real thick coat. This is medium, and it's real hard to sand, so I imagine the slurry would be even more. I've also found that with the peel ply, when you put the peel ply on it, it actually brings the resin to the surface. Like you can see right here, this area didn't have any peel ply touching, and it did right here. So this part right here is raised. So if you sand that down, you'll get back down to the almost like a clear coat once you take that top resin off. So where I thought there was a lot of low spots, it's actually high spots. So a lot of sanding will be required to get that cleaned up. The other thing you can notice down in the front, I did cut the the prop flange hole out. That came out pretty good. I still haven't put it back on the airplane yet, but I'll get to that here in a little bit and show you how that came out. Overall, the cowling's looking real good. Lots of body work to do still. I do have to trim around the radiator. These areas I just kind of overlapped extra. So that needs to be trimmed up and fit to the aircraft. The other thing I want to cover is the airbox update. So I'm just about ready to bond these two pieces together. I know initially I said I was going to make it so you could unscrew it and take it apart. There was really no reason to do that. Those velocity stacked tubes that go in here, they pop in. You don't need to be on the other side for those. There's an air sensor that goes in the box, but I can actually reach to tighten that from through the hole, and then that's about it. So there's no real reason to not bond these back together. So what I've done so far is I've bonded in the pipe that will hold the air filter. That came out pretty good. Still a little bit of sanding to do, and it's bonded into that half. And then I'm just now getting ready to go ahead and put the two halves together. They go back, because they were cut from one another, they go back together perfectly. That's what this tape's for. It's going to go around the seam, and those will get bonded back together, making them much stronger and airtight. One of the questions you guys put up on the comment section on the last video about the airbox is, if I did the two-piece, how would I seal up the air seal around where that all screwed together? And you could put just a ton of screws. That adds weight. But you're still going to have possibly some air draw through there. Not that it's a huge concern, but it was unnecessary weight with all the screws and the backing plates and everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and bond that back together and make it one piece. All right, guys, so the last thing I need to do for the engine is the throttle hookup. So the linkage connects up here, comes down into this little arc, and that's moves up and down to open your throttle bodies. So the pull direction of the cable is this way. Okay, so it needs to be pulled, and that's because on a thumb control on a snowmobile, you push the thumb, that pulls the cable, and that cable being pulled is what opens and closes the throttle. Now, if you think about an airplane where you're gonna push in to go, you're not gonna pull to go. So that creates a problem when you're going to do the linkage. If you set this up with a normal cable, you'd have to pull it out to go for power and push it in to stop, which is opposite, of course, of what you do in an airplane. So with a push-pull cable like this one, all the way in is power, out is idle. So obviously it's the reverse. So we need to make a throttle reverser. The other thing that we need to do is the sensitivity of that thumb control is really, the throw of it is very small. So the way the math works out to that is, if we did 4 inches of a lever arm to 2 inches, so basically we want to reduce by half the sensitivity. So we're going to take and put a pivot point right here, and the cable will then be connected to this end, and then the throttle body cable will be connected to this end. So when I move the push-pull tube, that 2 5/8 inch, it's moving this half as much. The 2 5/8 is the throw of this cable, not of the throttle body cable. Throttle body cable is half of that. So anyway, I know it's all confusing, but that's basically what I have to do with this throttle reducer. And so these are some parts that I've made up. They're gonna go together. Some it's gonna be welded together. Some it's gonna be pinned together. Basically that's going to be my throttle linkage. It's going to hook basically at the panel, this whole apparatus. I'm going to trim it down at some point. I haven't figured out exactly the lengths of where I want everything to be, but this is the start of it. So I'm working on that. It's kind of one of those things where there's not a lot of guidance on it. You just kind of have to figure out what you need, what the math is on it, and make it work. I did order, because of the advice on the Yamaha aircraft conversion page, I did order a 90-degree bend throttle, and if you guys follow the page, you saw my comment about this. This is the wrong one. It ends up being the throw, or the distance this cable moves, is much shorter than this one by 1 inch. And so this is not the right cable. It will not work for this application. So there is a 90-degree bend one that you can use, and I've ordered that, and it's I can put a part number up here. and that should work. In the meantime, I'm going to use the stock one as a straight cable just for the mock-up purposes, and then once I get the 90 degree on the other end, I'll swap that cable out. So that's basically this week's project, is the throttle, and then doing the body work on the cowling. Get that as ready as we can to split. I want to do all the body work before I cut that into the pieces that are going to be mounted up on the airplane. And then today I'm going to bond this together, get the air box cleaned up and finished. Hope to have that done by the end of the day and on the airplane. All right, guys, an update on this throttle reverser reducer thing, whatever we want to call it. Here it is. I've left the bar long and unfinished on the end because I need to attach this somewhere inside in front of the panel. It will mount right at the panel where the throttle lever goes through the panel, and then I have to have a support out on this end so that it doesn't vibrate. I did use pretty thick aluminum, probably thicker than necessary, but I didn't want this to flex or bend at all. So it's a little heavier than probably it needs to be. I could drill some lightning holes in it, but that just gives the potential for cracking. So we'll kind of see how it weighs out at the end here when I'm done with it, and see if there's anything I want to do to lighten it up or change the design at all. So what this does, as I explained before, it reverses the direction of the throttle. So right now it's at idle. You see the throttle bodies are closed. I push the throttle lever in. It pulls on the cable up top, and that opens the throttle. So this spring is the only thing I'm playing around with on how much tension to put on the spring to get it to return to idle, or to cancel out the spring in the throttle body so that it's a nice smooth action all the way through. You'll notice this is flexing a little bit. That's just because this isn't tight down here because I don't have the panel in there yet. So it won't flex as much once that's tight. So there's your action. You can put friction down on the throttle, and then when you push it up, it stays up. So it'll stay at full throttle, hands off. It's not creeping, but if you take that friction off with that spring in the throttle body, you can see it goes right back to idle again. So that's kind of what we want to counteract with this spring here. I can make it a little stronger by either moving it back on this bar here, or get a different spring that's a little stiffer. And then that would make it so I don't have to use as much friction. The problem is where you want it to fail. Let's say this cable popped loose. That's why I did 2 fastening points here, though, as a fail-safe. Let's say that did pop loose. You're basically going to go to idle right now in flight, so your engine would just go to idle. If I increase the spring rate on the tension of the spring, I could get it to fail in the middle to full throttle range, which has some merit. I mean, you could use your throttle to get you somewhere, and then turn the engine off to land. So there's that idea, but really going to idle would be more like just an engine failure. That's what happens if something goes wrong. It's better, I think, than going full throttle. I don't want it to fail to full throttle. Somewhere in the middle to idle is what I want to have this do if there was a failure. So anyway, that's basically how that works. I got, clean up these welds a little bit, some grinding to do to around these corners and everything, get it cleaned up, and then figure out how to mount the front end in the front of the panel, and we'll get that situated. I am going to still change out this cable for the one that has the 90-degree bend. That should be here Friday, because you can see how much stress I'm putting on that sheath right there. So I could either run it in this one back over the top and in there, that might work, but I'm going to try to get that 90-degree one to fit in there. So anyway, that's today's progress. I also got the airbox put together into one piece. It's drying, and I'll get that cleaned up, boots in it, cleaned up, probably do a clear coat, get the boots on it, and get it installed. So I'm getting really close to starting the engine, possibly this week, depending on the weather. It's supposed to rain for the rest of the week. Starter's all set up. I tested that. If I turn the key, it does kick over. But I need to put gear oil in the gearbox, engine oil in the engine, and I'm going to pull that filter out. So I'm going to run down and get a filter tomorrow morning. Get that filter out, fill the engine full of oil, the coolant system full of coolant, and then I've got to set up
or actually I gotta put some fuel in the header tank.
All right, so here's the throttle reverser, just about finished. I made a bracket to hold the front end of it, and then it's connected at the firewall, and the cables are in place. I did get the new cable with the part number I listed with the 90-degree bend in it. It comes down through the firewall, but I'm waiting for a firewall pass-through fitting called a cable safe from Aircraft Spruce. So as soon as that comes in, I'll have to pull this cable out again and then drill that hole larger and put that fitting in. And I don't want to set everything until that's done. Once that's done, I'll adjust it so that the two cables work together, and then I can set the throttle position for the ECU, the Infinity AEM ECU. And once that's done, then we can start the engine. So it's coming along, just waiting on a part right now, but there's your throttle reverser for the Yamaha APEX. Alright guys, a little update on the cowling. So spent the last 3 hours sanding it. Just washed it down. So you can kind of see what's involved once you do that outside layup like I did. You know, you can see all the seams and the fabric and everything. So a clear coat's probably not going to be the best way to go with this. So what I've done is I've taken, everywhere you put the peel ply down, it actually draws the resin out to the surface. So I've sanded off that excess resin and I'm back down to the fiber or the cloth now. From here, I've got to go in and find some of the low spots and use the micro to fill that in. And then there's also some spots that have a little bit of pinholes or voids in them. So right in here, I had to actually sand through a layer to get a bump out right there. So that'll need some resin or some micro over that. And then everywhere there's seams, I've got them really as smooth as possible, but there are little low points where those overlaps are or where the joints are. So those will all need some micro. Kind of like I did here on this seam. I microed that already and that came out really nice. So I have to go in and do the rest of the seams that way. And then on the top here, I tested this filler primer that I got from Polyfiber, and it's it's UV protectant and it is for composite. Here's some other places I tried the micro balloon and filled in some low spots, and that's coming along pretty good. A lot of work doing this, so if you're going to take on a project like this, doing the carbon fiber, just if you want a nice piece that's going to be, you know, show as good as the factory one, just realize it's going to be a lot of work. Some of the questions you guys have asked, first thing I want to address was the off-centered radiator. You guys can see I'm not happy with this either. Matter of fact, it bugs me so much that I'm going to do something about the dissymmetry of it. It has to be that way because of the exhaust. And the exhaust I couldn't adjust because I didn't make the header. It was one that Ken Brown made, and I had to work with where that ended. I probably would have brought it out a little bit further if I was designing it on the aircraft so I could center that radiator, but I can't. So what I'm going to do is, some of you guys have suggested maybe using what the model 1, 2, 3s, and 4s have a shroud that goes around the radiator. So I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to actually bring it up off the top, the bottom of the radiator and up, have a little rounded nose that comes in so we get a chute going, and then it will be symmetrical from the right to left, so it will end out here, and then I'll have a spot for a little cooling there around the exhaust as well. So that will be addressed. When, I don't know, because that requires a whole nother layup with foam and everything, and so I'm going to try to make a mold to drop the foam in so I can take it off and do it off of the airplane. But anyway, that's something I'm going to address. All right, so update on the airbox.
it's coming along pretty good. I got the air filter fit to the cowling. The box fits to the cowling. The final sand on it, ready for a clear coat. Couple things I need to do still. The breather tube that comes out of the engine on the stock airbox went into the airbox, so that's gonna require basically a nipple to go into that airbox right there, and that will breathe in there just like the stock one. I did put the air sensor in already, and it's taped off ready for paint. The options with the clear coat, I went on some forums to try to find what would work best, and you can do this stuff called Duratec Sun Shield, but it's a little bit difficult to spray from what I've been reading, and so the easiest way to do it was something this small. If I was going to do the whole cowling, that might be something I'd look at doing, but the cowling's going to go ahead and get just standard paint. But I actually found this 2K 2-part rattle can clear coat, and they actually carry it through, I'll maybe put a link in here, through Amazon. You can get it. Eastwood Tools has a version of it, and it's got a catalyst that you pop a canister inside the can. Makes it 2 parts. I think it's single use though if you do that. But then you can spray it up, and it's a good solid clear coat. I do have like a clear coat from Rust-Oleum, but it's just not going to give the same level of protection as a 2-part. So that's what I'm going to do there. And then the other thing that I'm not happy with about it is that it does have some flex in it, and it may get a little better when the other 2 boots are on there, but I think that's just too much weight to be cantilevered out over from the boots with this filter weight. I mean, it's over a pound just on the filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a carbon fiber tab off the bottom of the airbox and use an Adele clamp to the engine mount, and that will secure it. That'll secure it right there, and then it won't shake. Because if I didn't do that, the clearance with the oil reservoir is just too tight, and it's gonna touch there. So I need to prop it up a little bit and give it some support. So just when I thought the carbon fiber work was done on the airbox, I need to do a little bit more work. So I need to make like a little template that I can glass or use as a layup for the carbon fiber. So it would be probably easier just to do it with aluminum and then just bond the aluminum to the carbon fiber, but then you have a corrosion issue there. So I'm just going to do all out of carbon fiber, then we'll use nylon washers on either side, and that'll give it an isolation there. So that's what I'm going to tackle next. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching that episode. I know it was quick, not a whole lot of progress, nothing too exciting there. Hope to have better content for you coming up here as we move past the bodywork on the cowling and get into mounting the windshield. I know that's one that a lot of people are going to want to see if they're building a Kitfox. I wish there was one I could watch, because it's an expensive piece of acrylic, and you certainly don't want to crack it. So that'll be coming up here shortly, hopefully, along with the turtle deck. I do have the hinge option in that, so we'll be putting in that hinge halfway down the turtle deck so we have the access to the baggage compartment. Other than that, we'll just keep trucking along on this. Probably be some more painting coming up here soon as well. And again, if you guys made it through to the end and you want to hit the subscribe button, I appreciate that. If not, I'll hopefully catch you on the next episode. It might be a week or two, maybe closer to 2 weeks before I get the next video out, so be patient. We got the holidays coming up, and I don't want to show more of just sanding work. So I've got a lot more of that body work to do, and it's just not that exciting. So it may be a little bit between the next video. But I do have some, maybe some other ones I can put together based on stuff that's already been done. I haven't gotten into maybe the interior and the carbon floorboard project. Hopefully we'll get some of those parts in so we can start addressing that. And if that's the case, then I'll get a video out for you. But until the next one, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.